When I initially put this talk together, I put a plan a little while ago, and we got an echo problem, just in case the sound guys don't know. I planned on it being, solely about Visual Studio 2016, but there hasn't been a lot come out of Microsoft so far. So I will walk through that, and then I want to walk through DevOps and give you a takeaway of some tangible tools and practices you can use straight away. A little about me. I run a software company in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. It's called SSW. We are a gold partner. I am an ASP Insider and MVP, and I am involved in running the Xamarin Hack Days and the Angular Hack Days and a Fire Bootcamp, which used to be just in person. It's now online. My claim to fame is I crashed a Tesla, and I shouldn't say I crashed it. I scared my wife into thinking I crashed it. Apparently she never reads Facebook or Twitter, but she was reading Facebook that day, and I got a call within a couple of minutes. It was just a test to see if she was actually reading it. All right, so what's the biggest problem Microsoft have with VS at the moment, Visual Studio?
Crashes.
Crashes, yeah. Any others?
Download size.
Download size, yeah. Any others?
Startup time.
Startup time, all right. So, I just want to clarify first of all when I'm talking. Now this Visual Studio 2015 is not VS 2015. I don't know why they made it VS, because lots of us call the real Visual Studio VS. I prefer it when we used to use names like Yukon and, well, that was SQL Server, wasn't it? But there were lots better names. Just be aware that naming conflict. But there's a series of issues that have caused Microsoft some problems. That's the dollars it costs. So we now have a community edition that's not crippled. They were losing market share to things like Sublime and things, and they now have VS Code. They're losing market share for people that wanted to run it on Linux. So they've got .NET Core. So they're kind of making a lot of innovative steps, but we still have this 3-hour download and install problem.
Only in Oz.
Only in Australia, right, okay.
It takes you about 5 minutes to download 6 gig.
Thank you. So we have the NBN in Australia too, Martin. So they have got the download size to under 300 megabytes. So that is pretty cool, right? Within a minute, you'll be up and running if you click on a link. Just be aware, this is not the full version of Visual Studio. This is a light, or we might call it crippled version. And we have actually been through this once before, if you remember. Back in 2003 when we had Office, see the little one on the spreadsheet here? This was first time use, and it used to download and install when you'd use a feature. Well, it worked so well, they got rid of it, but we're back there again. And hopefully this is going to perform better. But in addition, Microsoft have had to deal with this problem, whether that you when you log on to Windows, do you want it to log on real fast, or and then every time you go to do something it's slow, or do you want it to take a bit more time, and then when you use it, it's completely responsive? The Visual Studio team also has that problem, but they've decided that they're going to make it faster, and it's now 30% faster when you want to get up and running. And there's been a fair bit of investments in XAML. Does anyone, who's got a care factor for XAML in the room? Wow, all right, so that's 70% of the room. That's higher than I expected. And it's good, and I think you guys will be happy when you find out some of the XAML improvements coming, but they seem to be pretty focused on giving lots more functionality, potentially that might even just run on Windows 10 to kind of encourage you that way. Because they're trying to get everybody onto Windows 10, so they're going to do it every which way they can. Here's another problem: you don't have a solution or a CS proj file. There's more and more code bases like that, especially for us when we're doing all Angular 2 projects these days, and there's Python and Node developers out there. What we have now is this file open, and you choose the folder only. So you don't need a CS proj or a solution file, you just open up a folder of files, which seems like a good move. Okay. If you want less spam in your debugging experience, imagine you're debugging and you keep dropping into some Telerik DLL because there's a bug in there and you can't fix that code. So it would be better to get rid of that and not see that. Not that there would ever be a bug in a Telerik DLL, would there, John? So you can now do this where you can add conditions such as don't drop in here if it equals the Telerik DLL, or only drop in here if it is this particular DLL I'm worrying about. Okay, so I think that's a nice change. Okay, I don't know if any of you are sick of seeing this, but one of the small problems, I guess, is you have to dig in for the details. You have to view details to get the inner exception. This is a bit of a modal dialogue, and I'm digging into the details. Is there any Pokemon users in the room? None. All right, don't worry, this joke won't work. All right, never mind. I'm sure for Hanselman that would have worked.
Now you got to catch them all. Is that the joke?
Yeah, that's. Okay, I just went to breakfast with Scott Hanselman. He just got off the plane, and he's looking for? He's looking for Pokemons. So we went along Coogee Beach, and we're trying to go along Coogee Beach, but he didn't want to go right along the coast where the water was because there's no Pokemons there. So, anyway, this is our new UI for this. When you hover over this guy, this will pop here, and who thinks this is nice? You see the inner exception. Okay, almost everyone. Okay, that's great. All right, so that's nice. Can someone explain to me when there's an error, why is it green? Maybe that's just me, but I find that odd. Anyway, so there's lots and lots of investment in Visual Studio to do with technical debt. Lots of the conversations in the MVP groups and with the prog teams is all about technical debt. I would expect that lots of the stuff that comes in Visual Studio 2016, not that I know that it'll be called that, could be called Visual Studio 2017, but I expect that you'll see lots of stuff in there about removing the pain of having hard to maintain code. They've put this stuff in here where you've got your coding conventions. It's a small step. I would tell you to a degree, you could just go and buy a resharper. Okay, what would you say, John?
Sure.
Buy a resharper?
Why not?
You don't know any other products?
I like all the meats of our techniques.
Okay. Oh, there's also Just Code and other ones. John is very shy; doesn't want to promote anything. Now, by the way, how many people in the room are already on resharper? Okay, so 70%. Who's on Just Code? Okay. Any others?
Nothing.
Nothing? Oh, yes. Okay. We have a few guys now.
I just code.
You just code. Okay. Not very well, obviously.
It's like training.
He's a consultant, and he wants to charge. He wants the most possible hours. Right?
That's why I code my Xamarin.
Right. Good. Okay. He's using Notepad. All right. I don't know why a Notepad user turned up to my session, but anyway. So, have you ever wanted extension manage history? When you go to a fresh machine, you want to, what the hell was that extension? You can now, I don't know why they didn't call it history. They called it roaming extension manager. To me, I'd just go history and it would be enabled if you logged in. But anyway, you can see them all. I went to go to Hanselman's site to see what is his favorite extensions. He stopped doing his favorite tool list a couple of years ago. Yeah, did he announce why? I don't think that's disgraceful. He should. Once you start doing a yearly tools list, you should be doing that forever.
If he's going to do you a favour,
Yeah.
you should always do
Yeah, so I would say tweet Hanselman to start doing his list. I think that's terrible. And I should remind you, if you are after seeing Hanselman at the end of the event on Friday night, he's over at the Oaks Hotel, or opposite the Oaks Hotel at SSW, 6 to 8. It'll be a fun night with Hanselman. We're going to get him drunk. That's the plan. No, just joking. He only drinks Coke, Diet Coke.
You can lace it.
Yes. There's also PubConf, so you got plenty of choice. That's a bit of a shame that they're clashing, actually. So, if you want, one of the sad things for me, because Microsoft's always been into giving updates on, the UI experience. We won't be getting that much from Microsoft anymore. We're just going to, essentially, Microsoft are not giving us UI frameworks. It's Angular or React or whatever you're going to choose that's outside of, so you won't find Microsoft giving you much of that. You're going to be, using it for the web API, and you're going to be using other things. Now, in terms of a sample, we've come up with a sample. Duncan and Steve-O, I think, will be covering this in their session tomorrow. But essentially, it's on the latest. It's Angular 2, RC4. It's using the CLI. It's using .NET Core RTM. It's using Material Design, not Bootstrap, and it's using the SSW Data Onion, a free extension. So that's just a way of just a sample project to show you. Actually, it was built internally for our guys the way that we build up a solution. So and you can contribute it to. There's two projects. There's the UI project, and then there's the backend API project. So you can have a look at those. They're on GitHub. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to talk to you about the problem. In the past, we have had the old style developers, testers, business analysts, 6 to 12 months, ship software, cancel projects. Okay, I should inform you that this talk was originally written for Kiwis, for TechEd, New Zealand. So the good thing is it's extra simple. You should be able to understand everything we do today. So what we have now, do we have any Kiwis? 1, okay, 2, all right. These days we are at 2-week sprints, daily stand-up meetings. Most of us are doing Scrum, right? Or some derivative of that. Who's in that camp? Okay, looks like 90% of the room, actually. There's only one, the Kiwi. There, not doing Scrum. There we go. This talk is not going to go well in New Zealand. So even Scrum.org, who kind of give us the Scrum guide, and they have improving the profession of software development. And a lot of the thinking, even with the Scrum.org guys, is about improving the profession of software delivery. Okay, a lot of the focus has been that. We have this rules to better Scrum. It's Scrum in 8 steps, and I should actually put it here. At the end of the session, you can grab this. But I'll talk through this in a little while, because this is missing something really important, and it's this part over here, the delivery. And we're going to be talking about that today. So what Scrum solved was communication with clients. It got developers and testers together, and it stopped this problem of devs throwing things over the fence to testers. Okay? So that doesn't happen anymore. But in terms of what our customers care about, our customers care about which part of this do you think they care about? Because really they don't care if you're doing Scrum or Kanban or some other thing, as long as you are shipping. Okay, that's the most important thing. And they want you to be shipping quality and not stuff that you fix one thing, break another, and where we were a while. They expect maturity now. Okay? I think Scrum is the best thing to ever come out of the US. Don't you? No. Okay. Anything better? Apple pie. Okay, all right, fair enough. We got any Donald Trump supporters in the room? None. Okay, well, he's obviously not the best thing to come out. So, I think you've just passed the intelligence test anyway. That's a good thing. All right. So, this is where we have developers, the guys that throw the sheep over the wall. We've got the IT ops, there's the guys that keeps the sheep alive. And we've got the business guy who thinks sheep can fly. All right? Now, this is how we believe that things work today. We get specs, we add coffee and pizza, we make software. At the end of the sprint, we make a deployment package. We hand it over to sysadmins to deploy, and then we work on the next feature, right? And then we hand it off to the sysadmins. We get a zip of the prog to deploy. We provision they provision the servers. They follow the developer instructions. We deploy, we inform the QA and testers, and we wait for the green light to deploy to production. Now, I've got to tell you, I am going to tell you exactly how it happens on we are doing a very large tax software for PwC, And let me just walk you through the steps involved in this. This is how it works. Eric is the team leader of that. He gets the specs, he adds coffee, pizza and a few Red Bulls, makes the software. At the end of the sprint, they're meant to get it there by lunchtime on Friday. They never seem to. They get it there right at the death on Friday. Hand it over to the sysadmins to deploy. Then they work on the next feature, but they're usually off to the pub about that time. So then we send it off to our friendly sysadmin, and we have to work with new sysadmins regularly because every time PwC sell to another company, and they all happen to be huge companies with very strict policies about their IT infrastructure, we get a new set of problems. So we get they get the zip, they provision their servers, they follow the developer instructions, something doesn't work, something's out of date, something new, some new thing we haven't encountered. They send us an email. Hi devs, your deployment instructions don't work, send me an updated instruction. Doc, they call the devs, no one picks up, it's after work, they send the email, they're off to the pub too. Then on Monday, they start working on the problem. On Tuesday, they send an email. Look, it works fine when we follow it, sysadmins, but I have updated the documentation to be simpler for you to follow. It's Eric's passive-aggressive approach. And we deploy, hand back to the QA and testers, and now the testers get this. Now the sysadmins are angry, okay? But this is the first time we've encountered a problem. They ask for a patch. There's buggy, there's some new problem that's occurred. We can't see what the problem is. So the devs want access to the servers to check the logs. They send an email, and then the devs say, look, we've got it sorted out here. Here's a patch. We can't see why it's so hard for the sysadmins to deploy. So they redeploy Thursday. They go through, and this, finally they get a new version. And this goes round in circles. Okay. So, do we spot any problems? Not enough. Not enough beer. Okay. All right. So the main problem that we have here is devs and sysadmins are operating independently. We're back to this throwing things over the wall, which is basically the same problem in a different format. So there's the Trump wall. So it worked fine in dev, and it's an ops problem. So why is this happening? And it's pretty simple. Each team has their own KPIs and metrics and goals. Devs care about how much work they get done and how many PPIs get shown at the sprint review. Sysadmins, they don't like getting calls. They want uptime. They care about uptime. They care about less tickets logged. So there's conflicting goals here. And the consequences of inefficiency. I got this slide from one of the Microsoft guys. And this inefficiency is apparently, I'm told, 40% of rework from their studies. And it takes 200 minutes on average to diagnose and repair a problem. And I love this slide because it's a slide about inefficiency, and this is the slide. Anyway, so how do we fix the problem? And I'm going to tell you the simplest way is to get the developers and the operations dancing together and as one. There was a guy in my office just yesterday, and he was, Stephen came up from Melbourne, and he said, I just want to tell you about how we solved our serious DevOps problem in a project with 30 guys down in Melbourne. I said, yeah, tell me. And he said, we just had a lot of friction, and they wouldn't do what we would ask. They always put us down the list. They were very unresponsive in getting us servers. We just had a very dysfunctional relationship with them. And then we started going, we had a few beers with them, we started spending a bit of time, and things got better. And I said, and? Well, that's my story. And I thought, wow, he was so excited to tell me that they fixed the problem, and it was as simple as having respect and spending time together. I will tell you that there is a guy in our office who I've had, he does a lot of SharePoint projects. Deploying SharePoint and the problems associated with that, are many, yes. And one of the things that I noticed when I talked to him is sometimes I talk to him and he's so keen to get feedback on what went wrong and how to fix it. And then other times I speak to him and he's really not wanting the feedback. He's I basically want to speak to him when I catch him and I want to talk about it. And I always thought, well, I'm explaining the technical problem. I think my suggestions are really good suggestions. Why is sometimes he's hostile and sometimes not? Anyone got an idea? Why would he be taking my feedback?
The length of time since he used SharePoint.
The length of time since he used SharePoint? Yeah, all right, we got a smart ass, all right. I always thought I was in the right and he reacted differently. So one of the things that I finally, it should have twigged to me early, sometimes I'm having these conversations and he has a problem. He's still got the problem and I want to talk through how to think through it and some steps. And other times I'm talking to him when it's already happened, I missed him, and now so it's as simple as the time you get a guy. I know it's pretty simple, but you want to get someone when they're ready to listen, okay? And sometimes when they've got a bit of downtime, it might not be the best time. So anyway, I just want to say some of these problems is just having empathy, okay? And because what you're after is having synergy together. So I don't want you to think this is just all about tools with this problem. Now, one approach to think about is to switch the KPIs around, okay? So you can say, look, the way that you talk to devs is you care about uptime first, network stability, and then the amount of tickets that have been logged in the last week with problems. Another way is when you're doing your sprint review, the very first thing you talk about is show me the downtime in the last week before we get onto the PBIs. And the other way with sysadmins is, all right, I want to talk about how much stuff were the developers able to complete the PBIs. Now, obviously, I'm taking this to an extreme. This needs to be blended. But that is the key, I think, to starting the way that you're talking to both groups. So you at least have the organizational goals aligned. Fair enough? Okay, so we reverse that. Now, I want to talk about a little bit about DevOps history. In 2005, we started talking a lot about ALM. In 2008, there was an Agile Infrastructure conference. In 2009, the Flickr guys came and said, do you know we at Flickr deploy 10 times a day? People were incredulous because it was a huge site and it seemed funny. And then there was a series of events and tools that went out, and we got this DevOps days, and there were some key books. I'd love to know if any of you have read these. Anyone read The Phoenix Project? Okay, all right, so half the room. Anyone read Lean Software Development? Okay, just a few. Anyone read The Lean Startup? Okay, a third of the room. And The Lean Enterprise? Just a couple. All right. Cool. And then in 2014, we got some big companies talking about this, Target, Lego, Nordstrom, etc. And then finally, Microsoft got quite serious about this and released a whole series of stuff that they'd been using internally for a while, running their services, and we got application insights and the like. So if you just think about this, and if you look at sysadmin, if I was a sysadmin, I'd be particularly interested in this. And we got any sysadmins? Okay, they're in a bit of trouble. They're not here anyway. But you can see that DevOps is growing. And basically, the developers are taking a fair chunk of the sysadmin's role, and this is a lot more, a lot more interesting. I found this interesting when I got Shaw Innes's business card, and the title on it said DevOps Strategist. So, anyone got DevOps in their job title? Oh, a couple. All right, excellent. So you can see that ALM, it's not dying, but it's certainly stagnant, and you can see that DevOps is growing quite a bit. All right, now I want to talk through the 4 stages of DevOps that are talked about a bit, and that is stage 0, which, sorry, this one isn't talked about, I just added this, but this is where most companies that you go and visit are. They have some ALM process, they're using Git or TFS or Jira or whatever, and they have continuous deployment and stuff, and they're interested in improving their DevOps. And the first stage is all the manual processes must be documented. Then we want automation and repeatability, and then we want to gather metrics and then improve the process with the metrics. So stage 0 is basically simple. Stage 0 is source control, and we've got Scrum or some process, and we've got continuous build. And that's as simple as, is anyone just at that stage and they haven't got past that in their company? Okay, all right, couple. All right. So stage 1 is having every single manual process documented. You know, they might have an installer that you run. You might have some scripts you run. You know, when the schema changes, release notes, developer timesheets are done, or some wastage in there in some manner, and manual testing is there. Who's at that stage? Okay, couple. All right, stage 2 is automation. Okay. And automation is, we've got continuous deployment happening. We'd probably have tools like Octopus in the mix. We don't have it works on my machine anymore. We've got, you know, we might be using on-premise or Azure, but we've got some automated testing, and there'd be negligible waste. Who is at this point? Okay, it looks like 2/3 of the room probably. Stage 3, we are now logging heaps. We've got lots of logging. And I've got to ask you, who do you think the best company out there at telemetry is? Microsoft. Okay, any others? I had to laugh at this one. I think the best company out there at telemetry is Tesla. I loved reading this article. Well, this guy had just bought the new Model X, well, and he lent it to his wife, first mistake, and she had crashed the car on her first drive, and she called her husband and said, look, I just put it in autopilot and did it. It wasn't my fault. Okay. If my wife tried that trick on me, I wouldn't actually believe it. But the funny thing was, you know, got to the papers, and Tesla then issued a statement, well, we just looked at all the logs and she never put on autopilot. Okay, she wasn't, I think, telling her husband a furphy. So anyway, so visibility into the application is what you want. You want all errors logged, every unhandled exception logged, performance metrics everywhere, the deployment process timed, end user usage, as much stats as you can gather, and then you want to feed this into your decision making in the next stage. So who is at this point where they're logging heaps and heaps? Couple, 3, 4. Okay, not too many. All right, there's tools out there such as Raygun, Application Insights, New Relic, and you know, potentially Power BI if you custom did it yourself. You know, you'd have Azure and using some of the deployment slots functionality and things like that. Who here is on New Relic? New Relic? Just a few. Who's on Application Insights? A few. Any others? Say again? StatsD. Yep. How do you spell that? StatsD. StatsD. Okay, haven't heard of that one. All right. And now it's a step of improving the processes by metrics. As an example, look, this feature X is not a key area, but we can see that 80% of the users use it. We want to spend some additional time on that feature because we've got some stats backing that up. We are seeing that deploying and provisioning is taking an hour. That affects 500 users. We add that up. We decide to buy hardware, measure the time, etc. We see timesheets that are taking a half an hour a developer per week, 15 hours of lost work, wastage there. Thinking of some way of automating that. Reducing damage from bad deployments. We go through all those steps as well, okay? And we try to see if there's a way that we can limit bad deployments to 20% of the users. All right, so in terms of DevOps, which company is the gold standard? Hanselman talked about it today in his keynote. Amazon? I think most people would say it's Netflix. And Netflix have been talking and doing this a lot, and they have very, very resilient servers, and they have that thing called Chaos Monkey. If you remember, he talked about that this morning. And essentially, Chaos Monkey, back in 2012, 4 years ago, they released their Chaos Monkey as open source out there. And if you don't understand what it does, it terminates instances of virtual machines. Okay, pretty scary stuff. And they do this on their production stuff continually. They will have this thing running that just kills VMs. I don't know if you'd like to do that, but I certainly would not like to do that. And that's where they are, and that's why they're so resilient. That said, I have updated my slides with yesterday. By the way, I had to. How many people here know what Netflix and chill means?
Netflix and what?
Chill. Just there's only a quarter of the room. Okay, I got taught by my kids. I shouldn't know what it means, but I was just having a chat with Nick before. He didn't know what it meant, but he's over 40. That would be why. All right. All right. So Netflix were in the paper yesterday. Netflix crashes worldwide, pushes Stranger Things fans to the brink. I don't know what that means, Stranger Things fans. Anyway, I love this statement. Qantas never crashes, but Netflix does. Okay, I'm a proud Qantas traveller, so oh, the humanity. Not since the Hindenburg disaster has there been a more calamitous example of technology overreaching itself and leaving poor, witless human beings and their dreams in escape of terror. That's what happens when Netflix goes down for the weekend. And it just goes to show you, it's even them killing their VMs, they still have problems periodically. So it's a tough job. Okay, I want to walk through one thing, because a lot of this is about communication. I want to walk through Time Pro, which is just a tool that we have, and I just want to show you the way the guys have set that up, because I think it's interesting. There's lots of things going on in our. It's an internal. It's a real site. It's our internal timesheets, and basically we have lots of things going on. We need a single portal, which we do have with VSTS, visualstudio.com. We got a backlog and continuous build. We got good communication going on. We've got Octopus deploy, and we've got application health check, which is a page we go if there's ever a problem. Now we've got exception handling going on. But really what we want is a nice portal of communication. The way that the guys set that up is here's Time Pro, and it's got a bit of gamification here. But every time, I want you to just see kind of the process that we have. And the first thing is we have Health Check. Health Check is just it's just a NuGet package. It's free, you can download it, but lots of people solve this in different ways. You can just have a page that you go to that checks everything's alive. So you can come in here and it will just, we put this link on all our apps, and it's just a NuGet package, and it runs through a series of dependencies and checks they're alive. Okay, so that's the first thing, but in terms of the coding, this is the bit I think is interesting, and it's quick bang for buck. The guys will jump in, they'll make some code changes, and they'll check it in. When they check it in, they can go to VSTS, or you could go to, if you're using GitHub, you could go there and see the pull request. But here we have the check-in, so Code Explorer, and here is our check-in. You can see this check-in here is the latest one. Eric's just done some work and he's checked it in. He will also, they all use Slack. Who's here is using Slack? Wow, all right, so we've got at least a third of the room on Slack. And they come in here and you would see that record appear. Okay, so the record appeared, that check-in happened. Plus, you could probably go over to the build tab and see that the build happened successfully. Not that they would bother, they would just see this appear, this new record appear here in Slack. They could also go over to the Octopus portal, and they could see that it successfully automatically deployed to staging. Or, they probably wouldn't bother, they would just see here, a new Octopus icon appears and says, hello, that's deployed. This is fairly quick and easy to set up. And who has already set up all this type of stuff? Couple, 3. Okay, who thinks that is super cool to have that? Okay, most. So,
You kind of ignore it after a while, I find.
Oh yeah, good point. So I should just say, in reality, we don't have all these. We actually, when it gets busy, and a lot of team members are on it, you actually turn all these off and you only have the problems showing. Yes, good point, John. But yeah, for demonstration purposes, it's good to see how it starts up. So when an exception happens, an unhandled exception or some problem, this pops there. It says, hello, we've got this little ray gun icon. And it says, hello, there's a problem. And then one of the guys would jump on that and fix it. And then, hello, this exception pops there. One of the things I don't like, I don't know if you can tell the difference between the first one and the second. I don't find it completely obvious. We have red here and green here. It's pretty, you can't really customize the text here with the out-of-the-box functionality. And so that's kind of how that works. And he has Eric set this entire thing up, and some of the guys set it up different ways. I like the way he's done this. I might just play 1 minute of this just so you get an idea. It's a 30-minute video, and he shows how he sets up the entire thing. But I'll just show you just this little bit here of Raygun.
Yes, we're using Raygun to do any sort of exception handling. So you can see that 2 hours ago there's 2 errors that happened. But what's cool about this is I can track these errors against deployments. So this is the version that I literally deployed 2 minutes ago. I can go into that. Okay, there's no issues yet reported against this deployment. If I go back to, let's go back to, say, this one. There's 2 new issues associated with that.
So I just want to stop it there and just show you, that's kind of one of the greatest things about Raygun, in that when you deploy, you can easily see just the new exceptions that have happened since you deployed, because they're the ones you want to jump on top of. Of course, you usually will have a list of old ones you haven't resolved, but they're the ones that you keep on top of.
Particular deployment. So because we have this, we can actually check, we can actually correlate in which build are all our errors being introduced into the system. Okay, this also shows you errors that you've marked as being resolved that are coming back. So that's probably a potential for a unit test to make sure that there's no regression ones, and then there's ongoing issues as well. Okay, so you get this nice crash reporting dashboard. So you can sort of see over time how many errors you're getting, how many have been resolved. You can ignore certain ones that always occur, like 404s, for example. The other cool thing about Raygun that we've got here is user tracking. There might not actually be any for this one. Let's see. Oh yeah, we've got some. So you can track usage, sort of average sort of load times. So no one's actually using the system at the moment. This is a live active session, but you can drill into users, and you can also correlate to which users are getting which errors as well. So it's pretty nice utility.
Anyway, I won't show you any more, but you get the idea. And if you wanted to know more about how that is, you can just watch that video. But it's a nice setup, and I think the devs really like it compared with how we used to have things. Well, I do want to tell you, look, there's lots of tools we can talk about here, but one of the most important things, I think, is it's not just about tools, and it's also, we've talked about empathy, but there's also the way that humans think through problems. And I can tell you that, we get a hell of a lot of traffic on our website to our rules. Now, the first rule, Martin just reminded me before, was the first rule on our site. Does anyone happen to know? Rules are made for the guidance of wise men and the obedience of fools. Okay, I think anybody just following the rules would be kind of crazy. I was, before I was in software, I was an accountant. And in accounting, there's certainly a lot of rules. You can't just treat expenses as you want. You follow the tax legislation. And before that, I was in the army. And in the army, I was in infantry. And there's certainly a hell of a lot of rules in that. When you are in the army, the infantry, you can, well, if you're a soldier, a grunt, we were called a grunt. And when you do exercises, you go into battle, you are at a heightened sense of alertness. You are in battle, you're being very defensive, however you're doing it. There's also another role there called a scout. And a scout is a person that goes up the mountain and they look around there. They have a different mindset. They're inquisitive. They're looking for alternatives. They're questioning themselves, which is the best route, what will they say, does that bridge make sense to cross, etc. Lots of those type of things. When, if you want to be a good soldier, you need to have good judgment. If you need to be a good developer, you need to have good judgment. And one of the problems that humans have is it's talked about a lot with confirmation bias. And if you even watch the footy and you're following your favourite team and there is a decision by the ref and it goes your way, you're not that critical on it. If the decision goes against you, you're much harsher on the referee. If you believe in capital punishment and you read an article which basically says something else, you're quite dismissive of it. If you think about politics, you lean one way or the other. If we just established there's no Donald Trump supporters here, but there are a lot of Donald Trump supporters. And when they hear statements that we would find particularly bad, like when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending the best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. Some, I assume, are good people. Those people will say, well, I'm not racist, of course. He is just encouraging people to follow the procedure so it's fair and equitable. When other things happen, like you find out about, say, all these failures in business and Trump University, they will say, well, of course, everyone makes mistakes, everyone fails. That's reasonable. When, even when he says things about that Pakistani Khan guy, they will say, well, maybe he's okay, but there's other ones that are problems. That's what we're talking about. And so even when we are in the middle of serious problems that are happening, that's not just, that happens to all people. And when you have been given new facts, but you already have a bias that you don't believe it's that problem, you discount it because you've already put in your mind and you're not being open. And it's a really difficult problem to solve, and every person pretty much has that problem. So, good judgment comes from lots of bad judgment, and I think that's a good statement. When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir? And this causes a lot of conflict because as humans, we have real problems switching our mind when we've already got a bias towards one way or the other. All right, so I want to talk about a couple of things just on this implementation. I want to talk about the metrics. Now, there's the metrics that you can eliminate are to do with waste. And if you are using Scrum, are you keeping to your time boxes? If you're going through the Scrum process or whatever process you're doing, the important people turning up to the ceremonies. How long are the testers retesting the app, like measuring this waste? How long, now this is one that I rarely see anybody ever measure, how long does it take to get a new developer up to speed? This is one I care about a fair bit, okay? So what you want a new developer to know, as soon as he comes on board and onto the team, you want him to know, when are the Scrum ceremonies? This is in our case. What is the definition of ready and what's the definition of done? Where is the sprint backlog? I don't want you to come and ask me for the URL to that. Is there an automated build and is it working right now? Where are the URLs for staging and prod? Or Octopus? Where do I go to get started before I write my first line of code on this project? Where's the exception log? There's lots and lots, and there's heaps. And I talk all about this on one of the rules. But this is a decent portal. There's lots of better ones and lots of worse ones. But this kind of just shows you straight away where to go to get started. Click on this link and you'll go to the induction for this particular product, and it will tell you a couple of things you need to be able to answer those questions correctly. Where do we go to deploy to staging? And we can see that it's alive at the moment, everything's good. Where is the backlog? Where are the environments? Just look here, you can see there's the production, there's the staging. I've just taken a screen capture of a real one here. you can see that this one has an extension on the marketplace, so there's the URL there. In terms of DevOps, there's our deployment stuff to Octopus. There's our UI test to Selenium test. There's the exceptions to Raygun. Ask Eric about that stuff. Performance, application insights, and usage Google Analytics. There's all the URLs to everything there. It should be there. Over here, you got the Scrum. These, that's when the daily Scrums happen. This is whatever. And there's the definition of ready and definition of done. That type of thing, a little bit of investment in your portal is pretty important, I would say. All right, and a couple of things that we're not there yet, internal tools. We aren't there, we don't have the Raygun tiles. We don't have App Insights tiles. We don't have deployed versions of Octopus. And we don't have our top user voice suggestion on the portal. So the portal's not perfect, but it will probably get better because in June there was an update. And these vendors know about these things, but there's these REST APIs. You can make these tiles easier now. I expect that portal will get better and better with more third parties out there.
You can get your App Insights on there now.
You can get App Insights, thanks Martin. So you can already put your App Insights there. And this is the getting started, the sugar learning. That is just a list of all the things that the dev has to do before kicking off and getting alive. All right, so I just want, oh, what happened there? Okay, oh, wow. Hold on. Okay. So this is a tool. I think these guys are here, but feature toggling is a really important thing. Anybody heard of a product called Launch Darkly? Okay, good. So 4 or 5 of you have. Anyone using it? Not a soul. All right, well, you know about it now. It is, I think it's a great product. I really think this is one of the, because basically what you want to do is keep getting your stuff in production, and for beta test users, using them to get very early feedback rather than just not getting feedback quick enough. The way that they manage all this stuff is really nice. So feature toggling is very, very important. Much more important than branching in my mind. I would think that this investment is seriously worth, and I think this is a sign of maturity to be using stuff like this. In terms of getting unfinished code in production, I just want to tell you about GitHub Flow. I think it's incredibly important. I won't go through it, but I will tell you that we have a video on how to create a feature branch for every PBI. And here is the video. It's just on one of the rules. It's done by a guy called Steve Lee. It's a really nice video on basically all the steps to do feature branching and how how he recommends doing it. So I would encourage you to have a look at that if you're not into it. Okay. So I just want to hold on. All right. So I've already told you, get your stuff, your team swarming around Slack. I have a whole lot of extra slides with other tools in here that you can download and take. I think you'll enjoy it. But I do want to tell you, we have a quiz just so you can walk yourself through and give yourself a self-evaluation of DevOps. These are the same questions we ask clients, and these are the things that you can use to work out which ones you care about and which ones you don't. So in summary, we've talked about what's new in Visual Studio. We've talked about the 4 stages of DevOps. It is about tools, and it is about the way that you're interacting with your sysadmins, and it also is the way that you're evaluating new information. I have the posters down here, and I want to tell you, this was the original image, and remember how I told you this was missing? So the new version that we have here has this bit on the right. So it's just about product increment. Now we consider this kind of important because we put this up in the war room with our clients, because we're always trying to show them where we're up to because we want them invested in the process. But this is all about DevOps, this right-hand side. A couple of other things. We have this Visual Studio 2015 checklist. We also have an Angular 2 book, which is up at the stand upstairs, and I think Steve-O and Duncan are going through it in their session tomorrow. So, a lot of this is on our Rules to Better DevOps, which I think that you'll find a bit more detailed than what I've done today. There's a whole lot of links here. And last few things, tweet your favourite tool. I'd love to know if you're using tools I haven't mentioned today. I'm massively keen, or send me an email, Adam Cogan at ssw.com.au, or I've got a business card here if you want to take one. We have a whole lot of videos up at SSW TV. It's a free YouTube channel with heaps and heaps of great presentations and videos. I think it's, if you're a .NET developer or Angular developer, you'll get plenty out of it. Last thing, Fire Bootcamp. We have been running Fire Bootcamp. It's a 9-week intensive in-person training. That's pretty hardcore to leave your job for 9 weeks. And we're doing it only once a year now, and pretty much most of the effort is on the online course. It's all about Angular 2, firebootcamp.com, and the last one, if you're after Hanselman, it's on Friday night at our joint. Go there or go to PubConf, do one of them. Cool, thanks.